I want to talk about now as we launch out into this is actualizing excellence in self-actualization. You're going to hear a lot about this. And in the next couple of days, you're going to hear people talk about self-actualization. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what that means and how we're using it in neurosemantics and how we then can actualize coaching excellence. Let me tell you a story. 1996, we launched neurosemantics to take NLP to a higher level. Around the world, even to this day, there's a lot of NLP that has a bad reputation and that does not carry the kind of quality that it really deserves. Anything powerful can be powerfully misused. And there are people misusing it. So in 1996, Bob Bodenhammer and myself decided to launch neurosemantics, and our vision was very simple. It was to raise the quality of neuro-linguistic programming in the world by making it ethical and professional. That was our vision. Let's live this brand. Let's live these principles and presuppositions of NLP. Let's live them out and use them in ethical and professional ways. And to do that, we were calling men and women to operate from such values as abundance instead of scarcity. So that instead of competing, we would collaborate. And we're doing that in neurosemantics. I mean, look at this collaboration. So that's our vision, to collaborate, because we really believe we can do so much more together than alone or apart. It's unnatural, because it's natural to compete. It's natural to think, if I give something of mine to you, I have less. But our theory of self-actualization is the more love I give to you, the more love I have. And the more capacity I develop. The more I give you everything I know about something, the more I will grow in my own knowledge, understanding. And so we believe in collaboration, we believe in abundance. And from that collaboration abundance comes that sense of respect and equality that all people are valuable, have potentials. And so we really want to live that principle, to believe in the positive intention of people. They're doing the best they can. If they're not doing very well, it must be the map. It must be the frame. The person's never the problem. The frame problem, if there's a problem. And so to do that and then to participate together, to embody that sense of cooperation. So we set that out in 1996. I wrote that in 1996 because Bob Bodenhammer from North Carolina said, "Michael, we need a vision statement." I said, Bob, I'll write it, you put it on the website. So we did it. A couple days later, Bob called me and said, somebody's wanting to join. And he said, what should we do? And I said, let him be joined. He said, well, why have they joined? And I said, we need to talk. Within a week, we had 7 people wanting to join. Within a year, we had 300 or 400 wanting to join, wanting to be part of this vision, wanting to use neuro-linguistic programming, wanting to use these tools of communication, of change, of self-development, of self-leadership, wanting to use these, but also to distinguish ourselves from those who misuse it. Within a couple years, there was 1,000. Within a couple years after that, there was 2,000 or 3,000. And so the vision has called us together. It is the common vision that unites us, and that we have many ways of actualizing, many ways, many areas, as you heard all the different presenters talk about areas in which they're using these tools and these principles. And then in 2004, something else happened. I was studying, doing research in the field of self-actualization because we knew that coaching needed a psychology. He knew that coaching, if it was going to be distinguished from therapy, and it was going to be something different, had to be based on different psychology than just the psychology that talks about how people can be healed from trauma and hurt and get into the moment. It's a different psychology. It's a psychology of the future. It's a psychology not of how people are hurt, but how people will continue to develop, continue to grow. And just because they are now living in the present and are okay, there's more. And we knew psychology, we knew coaching was going to be based on a different psychology. So I was looking at self-actualization. I was going back to see what are the models of Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, Rollo May, all of those key thinkers from many, many decades ago, and what models they had that would help us to explain how does a person tap into a potential, identify it, develop it, call it forth, unleash it from anything holding us back, and actualize that potential. What I discovered in there was the secret history of NLP. This was 2004, 2005. The secret history is a history I did not know, and up until that time was in no book on NLP. We knew that John and Richard had modeled three expert communicators: Virginia Satir, Fritz Perls, and then a little bit later Milton Erickson. And we knew that from that they developed some models: the meta model, the meta model, the magic of language, and what words can do to heal the heart, to change the mind, to change a person. And they modeled these three people. First of all, Fritz, and then Virginia, and then Milton. And when I learned NLP, I went to study those three people to see what they had written, what they had said, to see what else was there that may have been overlooked. I never even thought of, where did they get their stuff? I wasn't that curious, I guess. But as I read the history of Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers, I discovered that in 1962, two young men purchased a piece of property in Southern California that they called Esalen, that they designated as the headquarters, the Mecca of the human potential movement. This was going to be the place where the key thinkers and the developers of the human potential movement would emerge. Because, as Huxley had said, for years in the 1960s and the 50s, we have a civil rights movement. We have a women's rights movement. We need a human potential movement. And these two guys said, well, let's do it. The first person to move onto Esalen and to become the scholar in residence at Esalen was Fritz Perls. The first person, that was 1963, the first person to be the director of the leadership development at Esalen for the human potential movement was Virginia Satir, 1964. She moved onto the property. In 1963, Gregory Bateson was the person who led the second workshop at Esalen. I don't know about you, but when I read that, I went, my God, I didn't even know they knew each other. I did not know they worked together, and I certainly did not know they were leaders, second-generation leaders of the human potential movement. And then all of a sudden, it was like the eyes opened and a realization occurred. I now know what NLP is about. I thought NLP was run your own brain, manage your own state, do self-leadership, have good communications. And then I realized it's something much bigger, much more expansive. NLP is a child of the human potential movement. It's about how we unleash potential. And how do we do it? Well, take charge of your own brain. It's your brain. You run it. Because if you're not running it, someone else will. So you run your own brain, then you can manage your state and your emotions. When you're in charge of your thinking and your feeling, now you can be managing your speech and behavior. So NLP suddenly got bigger. The vision expanded. And our vision now is more than just communication skills and helping people to deal with therapy. It's so much bigger. It is about helping people unleash their potential so that they can become authentic and real and fully alive, full human. And that, very briefly, is what we mean by the self-actualizing. In coaching, this is critical because the psychology of coaching is self-actualization psychology. The difference in this is between the psychology that studies the dark side of human nature, how human nature can go wrong, how it can get hurt, how people can get distorted in the way they think and feel and relate and act. And that distortion, yeah, that's human nature distorted. It's not human nature the way it can be, could be, should be. So the bright side of human nature, what is possible? Abraham Maslow wrote one of his books with the title, The Further Reaches of Human Nature. The further reaches. What is possible for us? After we get healed, after we leave the past, after we become okay, now what? This is the psychology of coaching. And as Susie mentioned a few minutes ago about researching the psychology of coaching and having evidence base for how to make this credible to the academic world, the first thing we have to do is to separate what kind of psychology we're going to use for coaching. Because if you use the other kind, you're not doing coaching. You're doing therapy under the mask of coaching. And a lot of people do that because mental health people know they can charge a lot more if they call it coaching. I remember the first time I even heard about the field of coaching. I was running a therapy practice, psychotherapy practice in my hometown, and charging $50, maybe $75 US dollars at the time, 20 years ago. And I heard about this coach coming to town. He was charging $125. And I go, well, why would they pay twice as much? And they're not even doing therapy. What's the value? I didn't know. I did not understand what this new field of coaching was really all about. So it started a long, long time ago, and this is part of that secret history. When I learned about NLP, I thought, this is great. You find someone who's doing excellence, you find someone with some real expertise, and instead of finding out and repeating their whole history so you get to where they are, you find the structure of how they do it. Because the premise of NLP and neurosemantics is that every experience has a structure. And the fast track to excellence is find the structure, replicate the structure. And I thought this was great. So what Richard Bandler, John Grinder did, and Frank Pucelik did at the beginning of NLP was to find these experts, model out, find the structure, and then transfer it so they could replicate it in other people. And we could step into excellence very quickly because it's about structure, it's about the frames. Then I found out that they weren't the first. 45 years before that happened, Abraham Maslow met two people. He met Ruth Benedict and Max Wertheimer. Ruth Benedict, founder of cultural anthropology. Max Wertheimer, the co-founder of Gestalt psychology. And they were in their 60s. They were both at retirement age when Maslow met them. And they became his mentors. And Maslow had just finished his degree, doctorate in behaviorism. He had also studied psychoanalysis, because those were the two key forces in psychology at that time, 1937. And he started looking at Max and Ruth, and he wrote this. He wrote this in one of his books. Everything I know about psychology, that kind, everything I know about psychology can't explain these two people. And he was scratching his head. What motivates them? Because Sigmund said it's sex, and it's the death instinct and the life instinct, and he said these people don't seem to be so motivated. And so as he started looking at them, he started his good humans study. Well, he's a behaviorist. What does a behaviorist do? You get good specimens. You're going to study horses, get good specimens. You're going to study elephants, get good specimens. Chimpanzees, get good specimens. He looked at Ruth and Max and he said, good specimens of humans. And he got a blank notebook and he started writing. And he put, at the top, he put good humans studies. And I can just imagine young Maslow walking around and watching Ruth and then pulling out his book. Or with Max. One day, maybe 3 months later, he looked at this pattern and this pattern, and his question that he wrote in one of his biography, he said, I wonder if it's the same syndrome. He called it syndrome. We would call it pattern. Is this the same pattern? And that began a 40-year study of self-actualizing people. People who were excellent at living. People who were excellent at being alive. People who were excellent at being passionate about what they love doing. People who were excellent in relating, caring, creating equality, leaving a legacy. That's what self-actualization is about. And so he started that study. As he became a college professor, guess what homework he assigned? Go find some self-actualizing people. Or find them self-actualizing in one little area of their life. Study it. Bring it back to me. So thousands and thousands of studies were made. And about Ruth and Max, he wrote this. He said, self-actualizing people, those who have come to a high level of maturization, health, self-fulfillment, have so much to teach us that sometimes they seem almost like a different breed of human beings. From this, he began developing what you and I both know as the hierarchy of needs. Because as he looked at the lowest level, survival, and then safety, security, stability, order, I have a sense of my world and know how it operates, and I have enough control to make it stable. Now I'm safe enough to connect. Social skills, love, affection, bonding. So the social needs. Okay, now I'm in the group, and I feel cared for, and I feel loved. That need is taken care of. And then, am I important? So self-importance, self-value, self-dignity. Then he realized that above that, those four needs, survival, safety, social needs, and self-needs, self-actualization needs. And he realized that Ruth and Max were not living at the lower needs. They were living at the higher needs. And so he began exploring those higher needs. Let me get the higher needs here. The levels of needs. And what Maslow discovered was that the lower needs are driven by deficiency. Scarcity. Scarcity. There's not enough. And if I get something, it takes away from you. If you get something, it takes away from me. So, four lower needs are animal needs. The higher intelligent animals, who are social animals, and who have a place in the group, in the pack, they need all those things. So Maslow said, if that's where you are, if you're living your life driven, motivated by survival, safety, social needs, self-needs, you're just experiencing animal needs. You're just a good animal. And he said, be a good animal. Have good appetites. But don't stop there. Don't stop there. Above that are the self-actualization needs. And it starts with knowledge, and then meaning, and then giving love, and then beauty, and music, and contribution, and fairness, and equality, and making a difference. The being needs. And what he discovered was the higher needs are very different. The lower needs are deficiency. So when you get what you need, the drive, the motivation goes away. You've got enough food, slept long enough, got enough money. So the need goes away. Now I need the next one. And it becomes more dominant. The next one becomes more dominant. When you satisfy, it goes away. The interesting thing is, at the self-actualization needs, they're driven by abundance, not scarcity. And what this means, when you satisfy it, it doesn't go away. It grows. This is the difference between scarcity, living in the jungle, and living at the level of beingness. So the need, the drive, the passion grows. And your capacity with it grows. So the musician who finally learns to make music doesn't go, got that on my system. The person who seeks after knowledge and knowledge doesn't go, okay, read enough, done. But wants more and more. This is what we call self-actualization. So as we come back to this, we're moving from the dark side to the bright side. So I've defined the dark side as how a person gets hurt and traumatized when human nature goes wrong. And if you're a therapist, if you're in mental health and you do that work, that's a very important work to do. But that's not coaching. Coaching deals with the bright side of human nature. People keep growing in all of these being values. And human nature can be right. So this is what we mean by self-actualization. And here's some real quick definitions. Making your potential real or actual. Becoming all that you can become. Developing as a human being so that you can become fully functioning person. That's Carl Rogers. Fully functioning. Mentally, fully functioning. Emotionally intelligent. Having emotional mastery. Emotional intelligence. Fully functioning emotionally. Fully functioning verbally. Communicationally. What you can do with your language. Fully functioning behaviorally. Relationally. Fully. That's what self-actualization is. Being fully alive, fully human, and listening to that inner voice. So here's another thing about self-actualization. There's not one model. There's not one mode. I can't tell you how to be self-actualized because I don't know what potentials are in you. You have to find that out. So like in the Matrix, Morpheus saying, I can point to the door, but you have to walk through it. You have to listen to that inner voice inside you. What's clamoring? What's wanting to be released? What makes you feel alive and passionate? That is self-actualization. And it takes most of us many, many years to truly discover that because there's other voices. There's the voice of mom and dad. There's the voice of culture. There's the voice of commercialism telling us what we should buy and enjoy. and want. So we have to quiet those voices so that we can listen to our voice and those unique potentials of what you can be in yourself. Self-actualization is becoming the best version of you. It's living at the top of the hierarchy of needs. What we've added in neurosemantics is the meaning performance axes, and that when you synergize what you do with the meaning and significance, that this now is that synergy, that everything you're doing is meaningful. All the meanings that you have, you do something about. So it's that synergy. It's doing what you must do, and it's just being psychologically healthy and whole. Self-actualization means working to do well the one thing that you want to do. One wants to be as first-rate and as good as he or she can be. It does not mean doing some far-out thing. It means going through the arduous and demanding period of preparation in order to realize your possibilities. It means doing finger exercises on the keyboard. It could be that simple. There's lots of myths about self-actualization. Some people tie it with enlightenment. That's a whole different subject. This is you being you and developing and growing. And this is our vision in neurosemantics. This is our vision in coaching, helping people to experience this. Every baby has possibilities of self-actualization. Okay, great. So to go back to what Marzuki was talking about children, do you think that there's more potential? Would you like them to have more potential? I think of the self-actualizing person not as the ordinary person with something added. So it's not human being, Formula X. It's not that. It's the ordinary person with nothing taken away. The average person is a human being with dampened and inhibited powers. Two descriptions of human beings. Human being, Formula X. Human being, nothing taken away. Wow, those are two different descriptions. The problem is that last line. Our potentials, our possibilities have been dampened. Who threw cold water on you? And inhibited? Who put the leash on you? Who put you in the jail? Who put the constraints that you're now not allowed to be fully you, to think, to feel, to say, to do? So, self-actualization is the ordinary person, free and liberated to discover and to become. If we could create families that would support that, if we could create cultures in families, in businesses, in schools, if we could create those kinds of cultures, self-actualizing cultures that looks at the preciousness of any person and the possibilities of any person, so that how much human potential is wasted, how much human potential is never even identified, developed. That's what we're about. That's what you're about. That's what we want to seek to do, to have tools to create those kinds of cultures. And so we have several people going to be talking about that. Kabodi talked about that. Gloria is going to talk about the culture in organization. Lena Gray talked about that as creating those cultures, and that's what we're about. So the hierarchy of needs, even if all these needs are satisfied, the lower needs, the animal needs, even if all of them are satisfied, we may still often expect a new discontent and restlessness will soon develop. So here's a benchmark. I like this one. Here's a benchmark. How do you know you're self-actualizing? You're discontented. You're doing meta grumbles. That was Maslow's word. There's grumbles, then there's meta grumbles. You know, when you grumble about, I don't have enough money, my job is this. But when you grumble, and your grumble is, there's not enough beauty in the world. There's not enough justice and fairness. There's not enough equality. There's not enough knowledge and meaningfulness. So a self-actualizing person, if you want self-actualization for peace and harmony inside yourself, forget it. Because now you want change, you want disequilibrium, you want a better world. A new restlessness will soon develop unless the individual is doing what he or she individually is fitted for. A musician must make music. An artist must paint. A poet must write. What a man, I think it fits for women too. What a man or a woman can be, that person must be. He must be his own nature. This need we call self-actualization. So that's what we're talking about. What must you be? Because it's your nature, you're fitted for it, you're designed for it. So I'm going to skip that right now. How do people self-actualize? The human potential movement really never discovered the way. I've written this in the book, Self-Actualization Psychology, several articles on the website about what went wrong. Because they tried everything. They tried everything. What we do know is we will more likely be fully functioning and fully alive, in love with life and the world, when we adequately meet our basic needs so that we can focus on the higher ones. But this is the problem. This is the problem. A lot of people, I don't know statistics, 80% of the people on the planet, 70%, I don't know the statistics, they are trying to self-actualize with a lower need. The purpose of life is money, is food, is approval, is self-value. And they get stuck. They semantically load the meaning. They load it with so much meaning that the need never goes away. So instead of it operating like a deficiency need, which it should, because if you get satisfied, it should go away. But if you load it up and think of it as a being need, and semantically load it. The illustration I always use and go to that's the most obvious is food. What is food? Well, food is fuel for metabolism. Food is that fuel that makes my body healthy, so I have energy, so I have vitality, so that I can do. But if you get it connected, semantically, if you say food is the good life, food is love. Because every time my mother wanted to comfort me, she said, "Here, have this cake. Mommy loves you so much." And now cake, love, love, cake. Now I psychologically eat. I psycho-eat. Because food is love, it's reward, it's the good life, it's success. And this drive, whatever this drive is, food's not satisfying it. But I keep eating to get love. But that's not how we get love, or the good life, or success. So we semantically load it. And so we get stuck. And instead of actualizing our highest and best, we're still living at the animal level instead of the higher level. Satisfying these deficiency needs, the D needs, we release more personal vitality for moving up to the B needs. So you've seen that. Here's something we've discovered in neurosemantics that we use in coaching, and you're going to hear in some of the workshops, that because we have no instincts, all we have is the leftover urges. So sometimes we feel insecure. Sometimes we feel an emptiness. Sometimes we feel a drive. And what is this? Is this loneliness? Is this boredom? Is this not feeling connected to someone? Feeling loved? What is this feeling? So if I don't know what it is, it'll be hard to satisfy it adequately and gratify it in such a way that it's going to be gratified, fulfilled, and therefore go away. So without instincts, we need accurate knowledge about the needs, what they are, how to gratify them. So this is one way that we help people to move up the levels so that they can adequately take care of their basic lower needs. And when we have that, then we can move further. The neurosemantics about all of this is that the meaning you give to the drive is the instinct you live. We spend really 2-3 days in the self-actualization workshops, Unleashing Vitality, Unleashing Potential, talking about this and how this principle helps to explain our experiences as people. Whatever meaning you give to those drives, if you give the meaning, I have to have approval. Approval is the most important thing in the world. I can't stand it if someone criticizes, someone rejects. What if they don't like it? What if they laugh at me? If you semantically load approval, approval then becomes the big drive, and you can never get enough. The meaning you give is the instinct you live. We see today eating disorders because some people will give the meaning to food. Food is dangerous. Food is I'm out of control. Food is I'll lose my figure, my shape. So the meaning I give now creates anorexia or bulimia. The meaning you give is the instinct you live. This is why it's the frame of meaning that is the problem, not the person. If I had that frame, I'd probably be sending the same messages, same commands to my body and experiencing the same thing. The problem is the frame. This makes transformation piece of cake. Well, if you know how to go after that meaning, how to suspend the old meaning, how to replace it with healthy, empowering meanings. That's why it's neural semantic. The semantic in neurology. Your semantics explains your neurology. And so, as we coach to the frames of meaning. So it's all about meaning. Whatever meaning you give to any of your needs can semantically load or unload the need, therefore alter the motivation. Everywhere in the world I hear people talk about the motivation problem. Can you come to our company and help get people motivated? My kids aren't motivated. They don't want to study grammar. I've got a problem with motivation. I know I should do this, but I put it off. Motivation. There's no such thing as a motivation problem. That's a symptom. The problem is meaning. The problem is meaning. So before I go, okay, let's do some Raw Roth stuff. Let's do some Tony Robbins stuff for motivation. Well, that'll be a little boost. It'll be like a sugar boost. It'll be like some caffeine. But it's not going to last unless you change the meanings. So what does it mean to do that project that you're putting off? What meanings is creating the procrastination? What meaning do you have about work and going to work that you aren't all that thrilled about? The meaning is the key. So when we think about the meanings that we create, about the lower needs and the higher needs, the meaning that you give is the instinct that you live. And so one of our models in neurosemantics is the matrix embedded. We used to call it a pyramid, but it's a volcano. Because then the energies you're released to go after the stars in your mind. So come to this one. This is the other model that we use, and you'll probably see it in some of the workshops, the meaning performance axes. So if self-actualization is a function of the meaningfulness of something, the richness and high quality of meaning that you give to something, and the performance that you perform from that meaning, and when you put it together, then two things will help me to self-actualize. Richer meanings things that are the inner game, or the inner life, and then the outer life as I express it and embody it. So here's a diagram that we have in lots of the manuals and the books on the self-actualization quadrants. Now we can identify where I live. Quadrant 1, undeveloped. It's not all that meaningful. I really don't even understand it that well. And it's certainly not something that seems rich in meaning. Performance, well, I haven't really developed that skill. I haven't really developed that competence. So I'm in quadrant 1, undeveloped. It's where we all begin. Some people move to quadrant 2 where, because something just comes easy to them, mathematics, music, grammar, athletics, just comes easy. They put their hands to it. It's like they're wired for it. It's like they have that intelligence, one of those 8 multiple intelligences of Howard Gardner. It's just wired, and it just comes easy. So they get rewarded, and they get reinforced, and so they move over. They can perform, but it may not be that meaningful. They may even have the attitude, I don't know what the big deal is. Why can't you do it? It just happens to me. So we find a lot of people in business over their performer. They're great performers. Everything they do can turn to money. Everything they can do to start a new business. They're big performers. They get things done. But when things aren't going so well and they're in stress, their temptation will be to use their strength and to keep doing more and doing more until they burn out. People in quadrant 3 are the dreamers. They have ideas. They think about, possibilities. And they think, a plan. I could do this. And so they're great on that meaning scale of coming up with great ideas. If they stay there and don't turn it into action, then they're just over there as a creator, as a dreamer. And then when things aren't going so well, when they get in stress, they play to their strength. They do more of what they know to do. I'll just have another plan, and another, and another. Until the men in the white coats comes to get them. And so when they get in stress, they get disillusioned. So the problem in quadrant 2 is burnout. The problem of quadrant 3 is disillusionment. So quadrant 4 is where we have that synergy of putting it together. Now, the interesting thing about this for coaching and for development, your own, your children, your employees, your colleagues, the thing that's powerful about this is that coaching is challenging because it's asking each quadrant 2 and 3 to do what's not natural, what's counterintuitive. What's intuitive, what's natural, formers, let me just do more. What's natural, intuitive for quadrant 3 is let me think of something else. Another dream. What's counterintuitive, stop performing and add meaning. What's counterintuitive is stop coming up with some other plan, just do something about what meanings you have going. So to move is to move in the opposite. So this is the challenge of coaching. One of the distinctions between therapy, coaching, therapy is nurturing and loving and compassionate and empathetic and helping someone just to feel safe enough to let the war inside die down. Coaching is challenging. It is challenging people to stretch, to become more of who they can become, and to now create some disequilibrium that changes how they're doing it so that they can do more and fully. So here's our self-actualization quadrants, and of course the pathway to self-actualization is that pathway in the middle that creates that synergy between the two. What are self-actualizing people like? Well, after Maslow's long study and all of his students, they came up with 19 qualities of characteristics of self-actualizing people. I'm going to show it to you in just a moment. I'm not going to read through it because there's 19 different distinctions. Some of them are states, the states and emotional states that they're in. Some of them are beliefs and understandings and frames. Some of them are actions and ways of operating. And so the 19 ones, going from tolerating uncertainty, accepting self and others, spontaneity, genuine caring and love. We've got 19 of these. And to summarize these in 5 words, they're authentic, they're real. So to become self-actualizing, this is one of the challenges, dropping the masks, dropping the PR, just being open, transparent, authentic, real. That's hard for us humans because we like to present, and sometimes I forget, who am I really? And I get lost in my PR. I start believing that PR. But I'm just a human being, a fallible, authentic, real human being. The other thing about self-actualizing people is they take responsibility. So in neurosemantics and meta-coaching, we teach the 4 powers. John Hunter mentioned them a moment ago. The powers of thinking and of feeling, speaking and doing. The 4 powers. I'm responsible. So who's responsible for my emotions? Who's responsible for what I say? Who's responsible for what I do? Who's responsible for my financial well-being? Who's responsible for my health and fitness? Who's responsible? And when we enter into relationships, you can hold me responsible. Accountability. And this helps me to be more real and authentic so that I take feedback. Now I can be honest. I can say what's true. I can speak my truth. As I speak my truth, I might find out, oh, that's not quite so true. Now I've got a new truth to share. Speaking my truth. And honesty is, I want to hear your truth. I want to hear your truth. What's true for you? What's real? It may be painful, it may just, but at that moment, that's your truth. So let me hear it. Because I accept you and that acceptance of others, I accept and respect and have a sense of empathy toward you because that's your truth right now. And all of us are finding and developing our truth. So there's that honesty. There's that care. There's that love. There's that compassion. There's that wanting the best for others. And so this is a self-actualizing way of living. Collaborating now. Because if I do care, and if there's ways that we can work together and to create more together than the cooperating, the collaborating. This is so different from the competition that is of the jungle. And then the creativity so that we keep adjusting and adapting to the challenges as life and business changes. So the self-actualizing person, those 5 different characteristics. So this brings us to coaching. And since this is our coaching focus in this training, here's our definition, and I'll end with this as our definition. As we look at self-actualization as the excellence of living that we want to model and train ourselves for. What is coaching? It's a conversation. It's a special one. It's not like other conversations. It gets to the heart of things. The meanings. The meanings. Most meanings are pretty invisible. We just live inside the meanings. And we're unconscious of what is the meaning that I'm manifesting in the way I talk, act, behave. What's the meaning? Change that meaning and the whole systemic change begins. Coaching, depth conversation that works with the unspoken things in the back of the mind. Because I don't just have one meaning in the back of my mind. Let's say that meaning is true. What would that mean to you? Well, let's say that's true. What would that mean to you? We live in a matrix of frames. Coaching then is this mind-body conversation that works holistically with the whole person. So it is systemic because you're a system. A mind-body emotion system inside of systems. Family systems, religious systems, business systems, ethnic systems. So coaching works systemically with a person, and that's part of, and there's one workshop on systemic coaching. Coaching is a transformational conversation that facilitates change. So Shane said that he's going to be presenting the axes of change and said I might be disturbed by it.
I hope so.
What's that?
I hope so.
Hope so.
We wouldn't be doing our job.
So if they have changed that change model, I think I'll peek into that one. Change. So there's therapeutic change. That's not coaching. We're talking about generative change. Not change to be a remedy for a problem. We're talking about generating new possibilities. Generative change. And while people in therapy need change so much, but resist it, because it takes safety to change, people who are coaching population and clients, they tend to be change embracers. They tend to think about change and want change and desire change, and therefore are always thinking, what's the next level of change that I want to experience and create? Coaching, then, is this facilitative conversation that works at the higher or the meta levels of an experience for discovery and change. It's this conversation that works to implement change and to measure it. Now, this is a little tricky. One of the interesting things about us humans is I can start here and I can say, I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I want to change, and the conversation occurs. And as the conversation occurs, I start changing, and then at the end of the conversation, it's like the little increments of change has so identified and embodied that when they say, okay, pay me. For what? Well, the change. What change? I've always been like this. And they have amnesia. So we teach coaches, over here, put a marker in the ground, a milestone, so that present state, and get it really grounded, so that when you get over here, you remember present state? Yeah. Pay me. Now there's difference of value added. And so the measurement of change, we call that benchmarking, how to do that for the person. Finally, it's a conversation that unleashes potential so a person can become fully and completely who they are. So, self-actualization, being fully alive, fully human. You ready for that? Yeah. It's scary, because we're going to leave where we are and we're going to head out to this new adventure, this discovery of who can I be? Part of this, we don't know what's going to happen, so we embrace the uncertainty. We embrace the ambiguity, because the journey itself is pleasurable and joyful. The journey itself is what life is about. And so this conference is about that process. And you're going to hear a lot about self-actualization. It's not some far-out thing. It's about you becoming more you. And honoring that. Helping other people become themselves. Because when we have people like that who are authentic, who are honest, who are being real, who are dropping the masks, who are caring and loving, who are collaborative and creating, wow, we're going to create a world that people want to be a part of. And it's so different from the way psychology has been studying people. This is the bright side. So welcome to the conference. Welcome to the study of the bright side of human nature. I wish for you that you'll find your highest meanings so that you can turn them into your best performances. And when you do, then you'll be unleashing your very best. And so, to your very best, I welcome you to this conference.
You were mentioning something about the grumble, the inner grumble. So, what's the difference between an inner grumble and a concern? For example, how will a person who is self-actualized see the world and see the world with lack of love? Wars here, divorce here, and all these things that is come from the lack of love, scarcity mindset, we say. How does a person who is self-actualized see that? And how is the concern that this person wants to create a beautiful world, a love world? Is that an inner grumble?
Exactly.
Or is that a concern? And is this person is self-actualized in that sense? Yes.
So the answer is yes.
For both.
It's a concern that now is this meta grumble,
Yes.
because the person wants more for the world we live in. And if we see lack of love, if we see wars, if we see fightings, this is not the best that we humans can do. So my concern then becomes that grumble. But I'm grumbling not just for myself and what I want, I'm grumbling for the world. And so a lot of self-actualizing people are revolutionaries. They're the ones who cause the trouble. In fact, if I had a business card, I would put on there Michael Hall, disturber of the peace. Because I'm going to disturb it, because there's a restlessness. I'm not satisfied. I want more for our world, and I want more for the legacy that we leave. And so that's meta grumbling. If you're in an organization and you see this organization, this does not bring out the best in people. They can't have family life. They work them so hard. And they don't even seem to enjoy the work. There's so much politics going on. Then I'm going to meta grumble about that.
So in the sense that this is the meaning that got a person to actually continuing doing better and better and making a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good question.
Thank you. Yeah, priorities are different at that time. So what we do, we have tendency to put this to the side, hoping that when things are a bit settled down, we bring it back and discuss. But 2 days, 3 days later, things are different again. And priorities in life have changed again. So we never get things done towards what we call self-actualization. We always put it aside. Hopefully doctor can help us how to put it back together. Thank you.
So here's one of it's an excellent description and an excellent question, because what is the relationship between self-actualizing and conflict? So where conflict is a symptom of difference. Where there's difference, then there's friction, there's conflict. Can we collaborate? Can we cooperate? And so conflict occurs where there's difference, and difference in priorities, of values, of ways of doing things, styles of doing things. And where there's human beings, there's differences. So the question becomes, what do we think and believe about our differences? Am I okay with your differences? Can I be a good team player on a team where the rest of the team wants to do something and I'm in the minority vote? Can I accept and tolerate differences? So this goes to my belief system. Now, in my meetings, if it has to be my way or the highway, then I'm going to have a fight with everybody who differs from me until I find my kingdom and I can be dictator. So if we're convinced that dictatorship doesn't work, totalitarian, forcing everybody into a mold, that doesn't work. It doesn't work in nations, it doesn't work in companies, command and control, it doesn't work in families, that authoritarian. But if we go to to accepting a democratic equality, one of the prices we pay is conflict. And because we're now creating an environment where conflict will occur more. Now I have to have the skill to handle that conflict. The ability to communicate. Well, I don't care, I don't like that. Well, here's what I like. And to work in such a way as to find integrative solutions, and sometimes just to accept, okay, I'm not getting my way this time. And that is the attitude that allows a team to stay a team. Because there's no team, no group of people, no partner, business partner that you can have in which you're always going to be in agreement on everything. So once we set that, okay, now is it enough agreement? Is there enough value, coordination and collaboration that it's worth my while to give in on this and to be easy and gentle? And when I make a protest, well, I don't like it, but I'm more committed to what we're doing together than to have my particular way on any particular thing. And this is not easy. It's much easier to have a benevolent dictatorship, as Aristotle said. But if we're really going to believe in people and call forth that, then we have to have more tolerance and acceptance and patience, all of those qualities that is challenging to most of us. And so how to communicate in that way. So Alan's doing a workshop on coaching conflict resolution, because this is at the heart. If we're going to be self-actualizing, we have to learn. We have to actually look to, conflict is really good. It means people are seeing things I'm not seeing. People are recognizing things maybe I'm missing something. And so if we look to how we can value conflict, in NLP, the meta programs model is a model about different thinking patterns. So the person who thinks procedurally, the person who thinks optionally, is going to have conflict when they plan their holiday. When they plan how to cook a dinner together. When they talk about how we're going to arrange the living room. Because one has the right way to do it, and the other says, well, could we do this? Differences. And so if we can integrate the differences, listen to the differences. So one of the things that is a key point in meta-coaching is listening to the point of acknowledging what the person says. So if you and I are in conflict, and I make my position, you say yours, I make mine, you say yours, we're probably not listening. But if you take time and say, Michael, here's what I'm hearing you say, and I go, you got it. That's right. You've given me something, even if we don't agree, you've given me something that's so important, I feel understood. And when I feel that you understand me, that's that sense of you've cared enough to listen. When you've cared enough to listen, I'm trusting you. I may not like this particular agreement or disagreement, but I like you. And I'll be with you because of that spending time, investing time with each other. Conflict is a challenge. We have met, the leadership team of Neurosemantics have met here in this hotel for the last 3 days. And one of the things we've been talking about is conflict. And as Colin Cox said yesterday, the larger we grow, the more people come into this, more conflict we're going to have. And so we've got to be skilled at handling conflict, because it's not going to go away, and we shouldn't want it to go away. Conflict and difference is the heart of creativity. So if we want to have creativity in our homes, in our schools, in our businesses, we have to embrace conflict.